welcome to the Storied Human. My guest today is author Susan Glenney. She wrote the novella The Bowtie. That's her latest, and I'm dying to hear about the Bowtie because it figures very prominently in the story, and it's sort of fascinating. Her That's her second book. Her first one was Moments in Time with 16 Men, which also I want to read so bad because that's an amazing tale, and it really reveals a lot about a woman's journey. It really does. So she writes about women empowerment and overcoming adversity, which I think we always need to hear about. We always need to be reminded that we can do that. She's been a contributing feature writer for Kennebec Journal in Maine. And she's a New Englander at heart. She lives near the Connecticut River and she goes there often. And I've been there. I visited Essex. It's beautiful. I get
Absolutely.
it. It's a beautiful country. So welcome. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for having me. And speaking of being a New Englander, I just walked today and I saw my first crocus. It's like, wow. And I use that for
Oh,
one of my video for my videos, because I had to kneel down. I did this little, this little lonely blue purple crocus, but it was coming up and it was just so cool. So spring is
I love
really
that.
right
We
here.
need those. We need those little. We have some snowdrops in our front yard, and it was like we were going out for a walk, and my husband goes, "Look, the snowdrops." We were like, we just need them. We
Yeah,
need those little
exactly.
signs.
It's a sign of spring, optimism, and a new cycle for us
Yeah,
all.
definitely. So why don't we start your? I would love to hear about your story, and I want to hear more about the bow tie. But what did I'm always interested in knowing what you did before you were a writer and how you got there, because that
Well, yeah.
is amazing. Not everyone can do that.
Well, before I was a writer, I was in the hospitality business, and I
Okay.
was in there for several decades. I also did retail, a little bit of retail management, but mostly hospitality. And I did everything from parking cars, which I'm actually terrible at, to being a bridal attendant, to flipping
Wow.
burgers, to setting up rooms for baby showers or funerals. You name it, I did it.
Whatever
And
they needed. Right.
yeah. I was your go-to girl, you know.
Wow. So what happened that made you want to change, or how did you make the transition?
Well, behind that facade of doing all that was this inner voice that kept saying, "You've got to write, you've got to write." And growing up, I liked writing. I wasn't, it wasn't a big activity for me, but I did write about nature and poetry, outdoors. But what happened is I started to get really interested in writing at a later life. And I did photography. I was more interested in photojournalism, and I was hired for that for some work. And then the writing kept coming up. And I did feature writing for things on Tai Chi and education. And the paper asked me to do more, but simultaneously there's this heart pounding in me. It says, no, you've got to do something else. And I ignored it. And it pounded really hard. I felt like I really wanted to
Wow.
ignore it. And nope, you got to listen. And it was telling me to write something different. And it said, you got to write with the short stories. And so I did that. I wrote short stories and then I elevated it. I brought the book Moments in Time with 16 Men to an editor. And it was originally 18 men, but I kicked two guys up because they didn't make the cut.
They were
But
out. They're out of there.
yeah, they were out. I kicked them out. Yep. I don't know where they are now, but
You
and
know, what's funny? 16 men sounds perfect. Like that number sounds perfect in the title. It just sounds good.
right. Yeah, I kind of thought about that. So what is interesting is she said to me, something's missing here. It's
Ooh,
flat. Your characters are flat. You're flat. It's not real. It's like, snippets of a Hallmark card or something. And I didn't want to
wow.
hear, of course, but
Right.
she
Now
was
who wants to hear
absolutely,
that? Right.
yeah, but she was absolutely right. So what I did, and for those writers out there, I went back to the drawing board.
That's so
I went
painful.
back to the basics. I read classics. I took classes. I really read on the structure of short stories. I mean, I almost got like a master's degree in just all
God,
the
that's hard.
classes. It did, and I was also at home living with my mom, helping her out. So I did that,
Wow.
and slowly I got my voice. That voice from the heart came out,
You found
and it
it.
came out.
Yeah.
And
Your
after,
voice, right.
yeah, my
Yeah.
voice, and the characters became deeper
Oh,
and deeper, and I became deeper. And I did a lot of research because in the Moments in Time with 16 Men, the book stars Jennifer Grace Donnelly, who's an award-winning teacher in Maine. But in the middle of her life, she gets flashbacks from trauma, and she's got to go and piece her history together of what happened. So it's like piecing together a piece of a puzzle. And
yeah.
slowly she pieces it together. And as she's piecing it together, her life shatters. She hits rock bottom. She's got to go back and keep piecing it together. And at this time, she leaves teaching and she works at a card shop. And there she meets this woman who helps her on her healing path because they both experienced childhood trauma.
The same thing.
And what's so interesting, I purposely have this in the book. They both heal with different tools. And the whole thing is, most of us have had some sort of trauma in life. There's different levels of it, but we've all had sadness or pain. And the key for healing, even if it's on an elementary level, is to find out what works for you. So I purposely had it that the card store owner, for example, she said to Jennifer, "Oh, why don't you try massage? It really helps me." And Jennifer goes, "No, I can't deal with that. The only thing I can do is I can have someone touch my nails or my feet." And then another one, whereas Jennifer later on believes in forgiveness, whereas Alicia, the card shop owner, doesn't.
Can't do it.
So I purposely have it. They all both have their own tools. And just like in life, it's not a one size fits all. You've got to find out what works for you. And this is part of the whole healing journey of when you've had something that's been really hard for you in life, is you've got to figure out the tools that work for you. Not what's the latest on TikTok or on Instagram or, in the New
Yeah.
York Times, but what works for you. And that's the key. And also what works for you now might not work for you 5 years from now. So you've got to constantly fine tune it. And for example, in Jennifer's case, her tools were, she was a runner. She also did origami, and she did a lot of journal writing. And she also got professional help. And she eventually lived a very happy life, but she let go of the past and she became free and empowered. But it's an ongoing journey. And even now, for example, in my life, when I've had traumas, you're constantly fine tuning it. And that's the whole secret is if something comes up, you have a tool to deal with. It's like even before today's podcast, I did breath work. I go like, breathe in, hold it for 4, and out. And the thing is with breath work is, you don't have to buy it on Amazon. You don't have to order it anywhere. You don't have to pick it up. You don't have to pay for it. It's there. It's your best friend. And you can do it anywhere. You can do it in the elevator. You can do it driving. So that's a tool. So that the
I
other
love
things,
that. Yeah. So you surrounded yourself, you found tools that work for you, and you don't expect your trauma to stay hidden or go away. Things bring it up, but you're ready. That's such a great
exactly.
lesson for people.
Right.
That's a really great way to say it. And I love to say n equals one. We're only a sample of one. And something that works for you might not work for the next person. It's really important to keep trying and finding
Exactly.
the thing that, and I haven't had a lot of trauma, but I did have a pretty horrible time when I lost my mom really suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
um, 22 years ago. And I didn't handle it well. It's actually a couple of podcast episodes, a couple of
Mm-hmm.
solos, trying to help people understand that grief can turn into complicated grief, a mixture of grief and depression. And I was there in that place for 2 years. And for me, it was therapy and the support of my family and just facing some just learning how to get through. Like I think
Exactly.
there's an avoidance thing, I remember saying to my therapist, like, I'm afraid to start crying because I feel like I will never stop. And I had younger children, so I had to sort of keep it together. And I remember her, it's so simple, really, but you don't realize it when you're going through it. She said, you just have to go through it. There is another side. You have to realize there's another side. You have to realize that it's not going anywhere. You can't stuff it down because that's what came up, like that I had been stuffing things down in general. I think a lot of women do, right? We don't
Exactly.
we don't
Exactly.
show the things we're not supposed to show. Like you can't get too angry or anyway, I don't mean to go on and on into a treatise. I'm just saying I get it, what you're saying. I found what worked for me and it really helped. And I talk about it so that people will find what works for them faster than I did. Seek
Exactly.
some help a little faster than I did. Yeah.
And the other thing is, difference between now and let's say 20 or 30 years ago is 30 years ago, if someone had extreme trauma, it was never brought up. There weren't specialists to help you. There weren't hotlines. Today, there's a plethora of places to go, but the key is not to get overwhelmed, like, should I choose this or this? Listen to
Right.
your heart, be patient and listen to your heart and find out what works. And if a therapist doesn't work, try another one. And it
That's
is a process. And
that's great advice. Yeah,
you've got to be, the thing is you've got to try and key is to be patient with yourself. While you're
definitely.
going to be very kind to yourself and patient with
And be
yourself, where you
good to
go,
yourself. Yeah,
exactly.
definitely.
And find one person. They always say it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, granted, that's great if you have a village to raise a child, but sometimes it's just one person to help you get the right track. It could be a
Yeah,
neighbor. It could be one person. It's like one person
right,
can equally do damage to you. One person can equally do just the opposite. So
right.
one person in your life can be your support system to start the journey of healing.
It's so true. It's such a good point. The thing that bothers me sometimes though is if you need a therapist, that's like a time when it's really hard to change and shop for therapists because you're
It
not in a
really is.
good place. But somehow you have to make yourself until you find that right click, that
Exactly.
that mix.
It truly is. Particularly if someone's in a vulnerable situation, they're not doing well. It's even harder to make a
Those
decision. It's very
very
hard.
hard.
So that's why you've got to really be patient about it. And if you screw up, it's okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is for people who are going through trauma like Jennifer is it's really critical to feel all those emotions. And as human beings, no one wants to feel pain. We're programmed to run away from it. We've been in existence as humans for, I don't know, thousands of years. And if you're in the forest and you hear a bad noise, you're going to run for it. And we're so
Right.
wired for that to avoid pain. But the thing is with emotional pain, if you avoid it, the repercussions are greatly enhanced.
It's so true.
An accident will happen. You'll get sick. You'll
Yeah.
trigger in your body. So it's important to deal with the pain bit by bit by bit. And it's interesting. I have, in my book, Jennifer, I was just going to read you. She does forgiveness. If I could read you a passage in the
Oh,
book.
please do.
Yeah. Okay. So in this is the one where the bow tie. And what's really
Mhm.
cool is with my books is they the illustrators from South Africa. So we go back and forth with our ideas. And at the beginning, when I showed her and I had the idea of the hands, I said, you got to make the hands more creepy, more like a hard fist. And so, she did a great job. And she also did the one with the 16 men. And those are all portraits of the men of the book. So, but to get back to the bow tie is that Jennifer, like I said, she believes in forgiveness work, whereas Alicia in the book in the card shop does not. But it wasn't an easy thing. I mean, she spent years thinking about it.
You can't do that easily, right?
No, so this is toward the end, and she is on a road trip. She's going from Massachusetts back to Portland, Maine. Here it is. It was golden hour as Jennifer, back in Portland, parked her car near a grassy spot overlooking the Atlantic. She spread out her favorite blue blanket and opened her craft box. Inside were dozens of origami swans she made from the unmailed forgiveness letters that she had written to her father, uncle, and mother. There was also one paper boat in which she placed the bow tie. The tide was going out as she walked down to the ocean with her box of swans. She stood knee-deep in the water and gazed out of the brilliant blue horizon. She thought about what a peaceful evening it was, and she felt grateful. She thought about how far she had come and how thankful she was to be alive. Gazing down at her box of paper swans, she remembered the day, now years in the past, when she made them with her students, telling the kids never to forget how much they mattered. At last, she was learning to listen to herself. Tears spilled down Jennifer's face as she dropped the birds in the water, one by one. The boat containing the bow tie followed last. She gave it a little push. Jennifer watched her pain, transformed into art, float toward the horizon. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she inhaled the salty ocean air, and her face broke involuntarily into a smile. A real smile full of joy and peace for no one but herself in the vast open ocean.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
What a moment of closure.
Well, it's her forgiveness work and all her work that she's done.
Amazing. I love the physicality of it, that she made those paper swans and she made the boat. And then you can picture the bow tie just, she's letting it go.
And the thing is she made origami swans when she was a teacher with her kids, and she had a mobile in the classroom, and she had each of the students' swans with their name on it. And she said, at the end of the year, you can take these swans home with you. And during the year, you can look up and see yourself in the swan. So she gave this hope and inspiration for her students, but she didn't listen to it for herself at that time.
She didn't give it to herself. Yeah.
No.
That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. But
Yes.
you have to find a way to give yourself love.
Right. And I think that's the whole thing is in life, it's like we've got to return to our heart. That's really what it is. We've got to listen to our heart and return to it. And the more that I'm on a wellness journey, the more I really take time to listen to my heart, because that's where the answers are. That's where I get my inspiration. That's where I get my God moments, is being quiet and listening to my heart. And it's incredible, the direction and the answers I get.
The more that you do it, I can feel it in you. The more that you do it, the more contentment is accessible. It becomes almost like a muscle, right? That you're exercising.
Yes.
And I can feel it in you. There's a contentment. Yeah. It's so lovely.
Thank you. So I just, I think with these books what's so nice about it was a healing journey for me. But I think after COVID and what we're going through now in the situation with some of the wars in the world and the trauma that has gone on, and it's so sad. It really shatters me when I think about it. But is that these books show that life doesn't have to be living always with trauma if you have it. There are answers. There are guides. Right. And so that's what I really like, is that I show you the process, the step-by-step of how Jennifer heals, and the times she doesn't, the times she breaks down. It's like, when is this chick gonna get her shit together?
It's a bumpy road, right? It's not a straight.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line.
And I said this, I wasn't going to say the S word, but it's like, oh, well. But it's just like sometimes.
That's okay.
Yeah. It's sometimes she doesn't. And it's like, when is she going to get her act together? Yeah. And it takes time,
But that's real life. You're showing real life. Yeah.
That's the thing is when you see a lot with trauma now, or just situations with people's, what they do in movies or books, they'll show the beginning, like, oh, where it happened. And then they'll show the end, like 10 years later, the person's either maybe an addict, or they're not doing well, or they're doing well, but you don't see the in between. Yeah. And that's where my book is very different. It shows the process. So it's very real. And you're really going along and growing with Jennifer, and you can say like, oh, okay, that's something that is not at all part of me, or yes, there's a part of me that's like that, and I want to change.
It's such a great way to teach people to tell a great story. That's like the way people learn. That's why I have the Storied Human. I love stories. And we learn so much that way when someone tells us about their experiences. And that's what you're doing. You're sharing, like you're inviting the reader to really understand the process. You're reminding me of this really funny comic that was going around the social media where it was a line drawing, like a pencil drawing, and it said, your plan, and there's like a straight line, and then from you to your goal, right? And then actual life, and there's like the line is like squiggles, and it goes all over the place, and it doesn't eventually does get to the goal, but it's like a crazy doodling, squirrely. It's much more like that, It's
Yeah,
like
that's Jennifer's journey. Yep.
I always laugh. It's like I'm the thing on the right, It's like my life is on the right. I don't have that
No,
straight
that's
line.
kind of, yeah. And so, and what's good with this year, I'm going to be turning 65 in a few weeks, and I'm just like kind of hitting my stride. So I'm really
Yeah.
pretty excited,
It's so
I've,
great. I'm
yeah.
66 in a few weeks.
Oh
When's
my
your birthday?
God, March 29th, March 29th.
26th.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's so cool. So yeah, so I'm hitting my stride. I'm going to probably do a thriller down the road, but I'm not sure. I'm just trying to market the book. But
Oh,
you
great
know,
idea.
I'm just enjoying myself playing pickleball, and I'm reading a lot, and I just want to get the book out there, and I feel
Yeah.
that people who've read it, really are like, oh my God, they're really kind of like blown away, kind
Yeah,
of
you're
like, and
touching people. Yeah.
they don't expect it, and
I
I'm
think all
really.
that research paid off, girl.
Oh, it did. I mean, I really did a lot of research on different themes because I wanted to get inside
Yeah.
perpetrator's head. I wanted to really, and the documentaries, and I really, um, I got inside their head, and it was real hard,
Oh, oh, that's
but I
not
did.
fun. Right.
No, it
That's not
isn't.
fun.
No, so I really did my research. And you can see snippets in the book. And for those, oh, I want to mention is for those who are Canadians, probably a lot more than maybe Americans, but maybe not. But one of the chapters takes place in Canada. She crosses over from the Midwest and she goes into Ontario and then into Montreal. And actually, that's one of my favorite chapters. She travels across with this guy who, the expression, you can't judge a book by its cover, which we still a lot of times do, um, is this guy was kind of grungy, and, she was real reluctant to take this road trip with him, but she was desperate because her rides canceled out at the last moment. They weren't able to leave. And she was real reluctant. But slowly, she trusted him. And this guy was actually a really spiritual, cool dude who opened up spirituality to her. And it was a totally platonic road trip with them. And she just opened up herself because she trusted him at the end, toward the end. And it's really cool. And they get stopped by the cops, but I don't go into that because the cops judge him by his cover.
Yeah, that
And
happens. Yeah, that's
he,
a really good point.
yeah, so they get in trouble, but they get out of it. But anyway, that's my favorite place. And she drops him off in Montreal because he's going to McGill and he wants to polish up on his French. And she leaves him and she never sees him again, but he touched her life.
Oh my gosh.
So I guess the other thing is with the Moments in Time with 16 Men is that people go, oh, 16 men. And is that in our life, we are touched by so many people. And you can be on a plane for 3 hours and have a great conversation with someone, and that person touches you in an emotional way that has impact, maybe not immediately, but could be 3 years down the road. But you had a beautiful interaction with them. And that's what this is about with the 16 Men. It's snippets of Jennifer's life where she might have spent, like she did with Leo, I think it was a 3-day road trip, or life, very long-term relationships. But it's people that you encounter, the good, bad, and ugly, that have an effect on you, as they did in this book with Jennifer.
I love that. There are those people. You sit next to someone, you have an amazing conversation, and you never see them again, like on a flight.
Yes,
And
yes,
somehow you
yes.
dispense the niceties and you go right to some people, right? Heavy duty conversation. And I've learned things from people and carried those lessons and I don't even know them. But yeah, there's like actually a friend of mine had a really interesting thing. I've been thinking about how she said this to me because I had one night when I had to go shopping late at night. I was helping my friends with an expo, like a big show that they do, like when green was new,
Okay, yeah.
when being, green was cool. I mean, it's still kind of cool, but it was new. And so we had this big show and I had to go get supplies for the next day. And I was really tired and I had been exposed to all these great people and it had been a wonderful day. And I started seeing, it's hard to explain, but I just saw people like, I just saw people differently that night. Maybe because I was relaxed, I was tired. I just saw people as just really beautiful pieces of a whole. I began to feel just this beautiful feeling. And when I got to the register, I remember the person checking me out said something like amazing, like something simple, like that you would say to someone, but it was just what I needed to hear. It was something like, I don't know, she asked me, like, oh, you're out late. And I said, yeah, I'm getting stuff for a show we're doing tomorrow. It's going really well. And she said, you're going to do great with it. Like she just said like that out of nowhere. And I just looked at her and my friend said, when people say things like that to you, it's God speaking through that person.
Yes, yeah, I
And I was like,
totally.
whoa, but it just rang true that
Mhm.
sometimes people tell you they're there as messengers to tell you what you need to hear or encourage you. And when I look at it that way, that we're all connected that way, I feel better about the world, for
Yes,
one
yes,
thing.
right. Leo was there to definitely connect with her in
Yeah,
the
that's
book.
what it
Yeah.
reminded me of. Yep.
He was there, and he comes up later in the book. She she remembers, she starts meditating. She thinks Leo was the one who first taught me about meditation, and that was, you know, years later. She remembers
Yeah.
this lovely soul, Leo.
That's so cool that you're able to show that because we're all interconnected. And I'm thinking about that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. I just love that movie. And I just love how it shows that if you weren't here, if you were never born, there'd be so many things that would be different. And so many people, maybe even some people that his brother wouldn't have been alive. He saved his brother's life when they were young. And I don't think we think about that enough, how interconnected we all are.
Yes, yeah, we really are. I think with technology, it in one hand it brings us together, like this type of podcast, which is really cool. On the other hand, it really divides us,
It does.
and
Yeah.
it really can. And so I think we really, there's that whole, we're so together and yet we're so different. It's a yin yang. I'm not sure if I always say yang incorrectly. I think it's yin yang, but we're really, I truly believe we're all God's children, whatever
Yes.
religion you're in. And I've known
Yes.
people in so many faiths, atheists, Roman Catholic, Jewish, Unitarian, Episcopalians, Buddhists, and uh, the people that I am close to, regardless of the religion, a lot of us really feel that we are, God's children. We're all one. And if I feel if more people saw our interconnectedness
Yes.
and really spent a little bit more time being in the present,
Yeah.
our world would be much more softer.
It
But
would be.
we're most. I think what's happened is we're going more on autopilot and more. Oh, we're not slowing down. We're on autopilot. We're not in the present. We're either in the past or the future. And
We're
so,
reacting. Right. We're
right,
just
that's it.
reacting.
Right, that's exactly it. We are a world of reactors, in particularly in the U.S. And I feel that we need to change that.
Yeah, we do. But it's an illusion, right? That we're separate. We're not
Yes.
separate.
No, we're
But
not.
fear makes us feel separate. So, yeah, the love, we have to have love for ourselves. And when you love yourself, you can love others more easily and feel that connection and not be afraid, not be so afraid. But boy,
Exactly.
it's hard not to be afraid in the world lately. I mean, you really have to work on it, not to be
Right.
afraid.
Well, the thing is it's important for me to know what's going on, but what I do is I limit it.
Yes,
It's like
that's
with
so
the
smart.
news. So I don't watch the news because it's too sensational for me. But, well, example, I'll read maybe two or three newspapers. I read it online,
Yes,
and what I do is I just read the whatever's going on in maybe the Middle East or
that's so smart.
Russia,
Yeah, it's too
and that
much. I
way,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. And so I get the capsule, the nut, the bolt
Yeah,
of it, and I don't let it affect me. And if it starts to, I say, well, you need to shut down. You need to
that's
shut
smart.
the newspaper, the site down and go to another time. So I try to be informed, but not drained
Yeah,
by it. I think people are really drained by the news, and it's
I
really
get like
important.
that. Yeah, I have to put
Mm.
like a limit because I asked myself one night, like, yeah, you know all this, but what can you possibly do about it? So it's like this ongoing helplessness, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you have to know about it, but not in excruciating detail. And really, you can just, if you believe in prayer, you can pray for people, but you can't help someone on the other side of the world. I mean, if there's if there's some kind of fund you can give to, that's great. But I think hearing too much is only going to upset us for
Right.
no good outcome.
And I think the key to have a better world, I think it really starts with the individual.
Yeah,
So
it
the
does.
better as an individual I take care of myself and better decisions I make, if I'm accountable as a human being, and again, as human beings, we're going to screw up. That's part of the process. But generally speaking, if I'm more or less accountable for my actions, then I'm going to treat myself better. And that means I'm going to treat my neighbor better and the person next to my neighbor. And it really boils down to is the more people that are held accountable and treat themselves well, then there's going to be more peace in the world. But when people aren't held accountable and they just do all sorts of things that, you know, oh, what doesn't matter? It does matter.
It
So
does.
it really, really starts with loving and being kind to yourself and being accountable. And that way, you're much more present
Yeah.
and you make the world a better place.
And then you're affecting your small circle. People will be affected by you, the energy
Absolutely.
that you put out. And it really does happen that way, although sometimes it feels slow, right?
Yes,
You
it
look
does.
around, but
Mhm.
it's such a good message to get out there. I feel like you should write a self-help book too.
My self-help book is in my books,
It's folded into your story.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
really
you
is.
really do get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's as going to be 65, I was like, wow, I would have never thought that I would be where I am now. I thought my life would be very different. And
So
um,
inspiring. It's the
yeah,
more we share this kind of thing that people are doing what they're doing. I told you about my friend who's 81 and she's zooming. I mean, it's wonderful. There's no age limit. And
right.
we I would go even farther because I took this podcasting class and it was a lot about mindset and about sharing your gifts. And I would say that you owe it to the world to find out who you are and what you really should be doing because you were put here with these very unique gifts, right? And if you don't share them, that's not very nice. Like you should be your authentic self sharing what you have. And once she put it that way, I was like, well, okay, I'm going to try that.
That's exactly true.
You're not
I
helping anyone hiding
right,
under a bushel. I always think of
right.
that song from Sunday school, hide it under a bushel, like this little light of mine. I got that song in my head when I took the course, and you really are not helping anyone being shy.
Yes, we all want it's real important to find your gifts, and it doesn't matter if you find them later in life. Just discover who you are as a
Yep.
person. You might have not had the support to find who you are, but it just takes a little time and a little nudging and listening to your heart and really follow who you are and your truths of what you love to do. And it will come to you. It really
Yeah.
will.
It's great advice. Is there anything else that you want to share that we didn't cover?
Let's see. Oh, two things. One is, let's see, two things. Okay. When I was meditating, I got this and I put this in the beginning of the book. Let go of the past. It no longer belongs to you, by Susan Glenney. That's me. And then a
I
percentage
love
of
that.
each book sold goes to the New Horizons Domestic Violence Services
Oh,
in
that's
Middlesex
wonderful.
County, Connecticut. And then I just want to end with, oh, and then if you want to get my books, I'd love that. You can go to Susan Glenney SusanGlenney.com
Mhm.
/ newsletter. And you can get my stuff on Amazon. But
Good. And is there a way to what's your website? That's a good way to get in touch with you, right?
oh, you can just go to SusanGlenney.com.
That's your website.
Yeah,
Great.
you can go there. And
And I noticed you have an Instagram too.
oh,
I
I'm
like your Instagram
Instagram. I'm on TikTok
and
and,
Facebook, right?
and Facebook. Yeah. And it was
Well, I'll
really
put all this in the
interesting.
show notes, but I like to say it out loud in case people don't read them.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I've just enjoyed myself so much being on the
I
show
love
today. Thank
talking to
you.
you. It's so easy to talk to you. And I love that you found what you're supposed to do, but that you're also helping others because the
Absolutely.
books the books are definitely going to help others.
Absolutely.
So basically, Susan, you're the bomb.
Yeah. That's great. I love that.
I love that too.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn.